I was a kid, right? And I was on a team. So this is I was started to work for Sony PlayStation, and we were working a bunch of us, and there was like we were a team. We were all basically the same age, right? Young 20s, and it was very interesting. I think there was an older person who, like, when I joined the team. So first of all, like, UI is usually something that is kind of treated as a secondary thing, like especially in the game industry. Like, you're worried about gameplay, you're worried about animations, you're worried about like when you do a demo of if you watch demos of games, they like take the UI off, right? They hide it.
Yeah.
So like the UI
And it
team is like,
looks way
okay,
better.
just yeah, I mean, yeah, the games. I mean, the UI is used. It's very important, but for the most part, that's alarm.
Professionals.
So much for airplane mode. It doesn't alarm still.
Oof.
But anyway, I was going to say for the game industry, it's like you're doing UI, it's fine. Just let this team do it and just stay out of our way, right? Graphics team gets all the love and animations and all of this stuff. But the reason I'm bringing up this environment is so we were kind of in this corner, and we were kids, right? And it's interesting in retrospect how much work there was to do for how much of like in general we were left off to our own devices. We were working on a baseball title, and I mean there was, I think it was like 200 to 300 screens in the end that we were responsible for. We did some amazing technical work, which we don't have time to get into, in this talk. But we were under a lot of pressure, right? Because we were kids who had this huge deadline. One of the things we did was there was a system that was like all hard coded. It was all like written in code, and we were creating a tool. And so we were converting all of these hard coded things into this tool. And as I said, we bit off more than we could chew, like 200 to 300 screens, right? That's like, if you do a screen a day, we're already late, right? So we're already panicking. We're getting features done. We're under a ton of stress. And so, yeah, we decided to, because we were kids, we didn't have a backup plan. We went all in on converting everything over. So there was no turning back. And that was a very scary decision. And I was just there to help, right? I had just been hired. This other person who was also basically my age had made the call, and he was on, he would have been responsible if we took down the game, like if they couldn't publish the game because we made this decision, that might have been a fireable situation. This guy was very stressed. And so I was bumbling around. Well, sure. But even then, like, the US has a lot. I mean, even the US, there are a lot of protections.
In France, I don't think you can get fired for that.
I think in the sense, I mean, even just personally, like, we would have felt like, you know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
We would have felt a ton of it. So this person's already freaking out. From his point of view, he's like, just get your work done. And I kept going over, bringing up issues, right? And this is always a dilemma. You're when you're joining a company, like, should I try to solve it myself? Should I bring it up? And I think I was generally a good at like trying to do stuff on my own and only bringing things up that I was having trouble solving. But I remember going over trying to bring a problem to him, and he exploded. I remember slamming the keyboard. He's like, just do it. Can you just get your shit done? And I'm like, sure. And I did not talk to him for 6 months after that. Right. Well, I just like I was already stressed. I was already giving this company like tons of extra time. We were already committed to helping them a lot. And I was like, I just couldn't handle it. Like, I just disassociated with it. I couldn't deal with that amount of anger. I had my own personal issues. Like, I was from a family, we didn't deal with anger very well. And I'm sure he had a different family where anger was very normal and very, something that people dealt with a lot. So anyway, that was a situation, right? So before I talk more about it, what would have you been in a situation? What would you think that I should have done? This person slammed his keyboard and I walked away. Like, what's the next step? Now that you guys are sort of in this calm state hearing this story.
I'm going to go first.
Generally, yeah. I don't know, but there's a very high chance I would have done exactly the same.
Sure.
Like, I definitely see myself doing that. And I know it's not good, but I don't know anything more.
Yeah.
I think, I would have probably I would have probably ended up doing the same too. But the thing is, I don't like being talked back to when I haven't done something wrong. So I would probably first try to talk back to that person before eventually giving up. So I would have probably got into more trouble by doing that. But when I feel like I haven't done something wrong, I don't get angry. But it has happened a lot. But I just try to stay calm and talk to the person and be like, I haven't done anything for you to be angry. We should talk about this and see why I'm doing what I'm doing, what you're doing, what you're doing. But it doesn't, it's not something that works very often when someone is angry. And you can understand in a very stressful environment with a big deadline. You understand. I've had actually similar situations, not in the workplace, but like it was with the tenant of an apartment building where there were lots of problems with the building, and she was trying to manage them all, and I was trying to tell her, but this is also, we also have an urgent problem with that. And eventually she just snapped at me and was like, I'm already doing my best. But I was like, yes, but as the people living there, we are still suffering from the consequences of this. And so I have actually been like in a similar situation. I would still try to talk to her, but eventually I had to leave.
Right.
Because the problem is, what often happens is that even though it shouldn't be the case, in the absence of an arbitrating third party, the angrier person usually gets the last word, and that's a sad. It's a sad reality because it really shouldn't happen, but that's just how it ends up happening without another person to chime in.
We're not.
I mean, for some people, if they're being angry,
this
is human nature. Yeah. But like, if someone's being angry at you, that might be a warning for them. Like, just give me space. But they don't, I mean, that's they're not going to listen, right? Like, even if you're talking reasonably to someone, like you do need at that point, like when there's anger, you need to give space. The thing that you are healthier than I was, and maybe even still am, if somebody's angry at me, I immediately think that I did something wrong. Like, it doesn't matter the reality of it. Like, I immediately go back to a place where I've done something wrong, and I either have to like figure out what I did wrong, or I have to defend it, or you know what I mean? There's not this thing where I can sort of step back, which is what you want to do. You want to step back and be like, okay, the person's angry. This doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong, but it does mean at this point that you probably want to be like, okay, I'm gonna take a break and let me look into it, and we'll talk about it later. What you want to do is, when things are calm, you want to find a way to talk to that person. You want to find a way to pull them out of that situation. And you're not going to talk about the code. You're going to talk about the response and why it was healthy or not healthy. You could do it over lunch, right? Like, it's, if you're working remotely or that's not possible, that's trickier. But usually lunch is a really great way to sort of hash these things out, right? Like, you have a stressful situation, you get lunch together and you're like, okay, let's talk about what happened, while you're laughing over some other conversation. Is the way that
I have a very hard time starting discussions with people I am emotionally involved with, whichever reason that may be. And like, I can easily go to people and talk about random stuff, but if there's been a conflict or anything with strong emotions, whichever way that may be, I don't know how to start the discussion. And so I'm not going to, I don't know how to say that without giving specifics I don't want to give.
Right.
But basically, it's really hard for me to actually go talk to the person and be like, okay, we need to talk about this thing like that. I don't know how. However, if the person comes and asks me, then I can definitely follow the discussion and I can follow through on that. And I would be very happy to have that discussion, but I don't know how to start it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can even say it this way, right? You can be, hey, I'm not good at this, but what happened yesterday, I don't feel was very effective. And you mind like walking and talking, right? Or you mind grabbing a room with me? We could talk about it. Or would you mind getting lunch with me? We could talk about it. And you don't have to be an expert at it, right? You can definitely say, I might screw this up, right? But I do want to, I do want this to be better next time, or at least you could understand my perspective.
It is very easy to say. I don't think it's that easy to put it into practice.
Well, in practice, it's just it can go a number of many different ways, because like the person, depending on the mood they're in, they might as well, in best case scenario, they might just regret. Most people don't like getting angry and like bursting out like that. So
that's
they
true.
also regret that what they've done and want to get even and talk things out. Or they might not be ready, in which case you have to pull back again.
Right.
It's depending. I don't think it's worth it to strain a long-term relationship if you can at all avoid it. I try to address things as quickly as possible. Sometimes people tell me that I'm too methodical in trying to address what. Yes, I was laughing because knows exactly what I mean.
Knowing you, I'm not surprised people who'd say that, but well.
Yeah, I mean, because I get too methodical with what went wrong, and I want to analyze every step of the of the process, and maybe even more so for personal issues and for tech issues, actually. So, and for tech issues, it's always easier to go to someone and say, okay, we screwed up on this, and we can do better next time. But for emotional involvement, it's always good, and failure often brings emotional involvement, right? Because like you always, it brings a whole lot of storm of emotions, depending even on the consequences. There's regret, there's anger at yourself and others, there's stress, disappointment, a lot of things that you don't want to face a lot of the time. And yet you're going to have to improve. So it's like we can have a lot of positive messages about failure, but we always have to remember there's a lot of emotional work to get over some things, and especially when it involves other people.
Right.